Serious, what is the most outrageous / ridiculous display of casual racism you've witnessed or experienced yourself? A coworker saying every time they bought from the local Domino's they felt like they were supporting Al-Qaeda because the workers there look Middle Eastern. Wow, I didn't know that Al-Qaeda was funded by a pizza place /s. A sign that had a purpose of telling people not to be racist, yet it said, it doesn't matter if you are black, brown or normal, we are all the same. I laughed so hard at this one. This is terrible though. White people are considered the default human, I guess. I love all babies. I even love black babies. Said by a family member. Maybe not the most outrageous, but certainly memorable for me. That reminds me, my family is white, and we feel that it's important that our kids' toys reflect the various people of the world. When my oldest was small, she had a water baby. Anyone remember those? That was black. We were at a family gathering when my aunt came in, saw the doll, and said, "Do you think that's really necessary?" I replied, "Obviously." Probably the only time I thought on my feet like that. That aunt later became a teacher FFS. Close bracket. As a nation during COVID, I've been having a blast at grocery stores. People are happy to give me lots of personal space and even move to other checkout lanes if I'm around. Such speedy checkouts. I would fake cough loudly for additional space. Power level 100 here. Well, I have 3 incidents that all happened with a 6-month period of my life at 3 different jobs. 1. My coworker got a telemarketing call from someone with a heavy Indian accent. Somehow this culminated in several people in the office dancing around chanting ching chong bing bong and pulling the corners of their eyes. It was surreal, and I wasn't paying attention, so I have no idea how it transitioned from mild annoyance / racism against Indian people to cartoonish racism against Chinese people. But I guess that's part of the racism. That both India and China are all just other. 2. The commission salespeople would deliberately take breaks and take a long time to finish up with their current customer. Is a nation customer was next. They are financially incentivized to get through customers as quick as possible. But they sure did dawdle for Asian customers. 3. One of my co-workers joked that we would have to watch the office dog, or the temp worker we had just hired would eat her, and he made this joke to everybody, and laughed like he had told the funniest joke in the world. So in February 2017 I would have told you that Asian people didn't experience much racism. But that changed by July. All those dog eating jokes make me curious what dog actually tastes like. Maybe we are missing out on something. Got arrested on the night of the Charlie Hebdo massacre because I was walking through the street I grew up in and lived for 20+ years with someone who had a different skin tone than I. We got arrested for looking at a house suspiciously. Geez. What happened next? We were taken to the local precinct. I was released after 2 hours. The guy who was with me was an 18-year-old refugee without a status. They were getting ready to deport him illegally. When we finally got him his lawyer in, she'd been denied access on account of being a migration lawyer instead of a criminal lawyer. If we hadn't acted in time he would have been deported back to Dagestan without his father, who didn't know what was going on till that morning. Now this kid was in a migration procedure, so there was no way they were allowed to do what they were planning to do. He suffered from a big depression after this. Note, we'd been picked up for no crime whatsoever. We were picked up because I argued with the cop asking why we were stopped, and he wouldn't give a reason. It was that the King Cowboy cop who escalated things. That we were allegedly stopped on the suspicion of looking at a house. Funny is something that I learned later via a third party. We were held without cause. I went to get legal counsel the next day. They told me I couldn't file a complaint without the fine, which never appeared in my mailbox. I'm Korean. I'm told very frequently that I speak English really good. I usually smile and say thanks. You too. Sounds like the best response. When I was in telecom, a customer asked my trainee to use the service door, which was a mudroom entrance, but not myself. And before someone asks, I gave my trainee the option to decide on leaving. He decided to stay, but made sure to shit in her toilet and not flush before leaving. I'm surprised he didn't leave her upper decker. I witnessed it. I was picking peppers with my stepmom and about 30 feet away I heard a man and his daughter, looked around 5 to 8 years old, and told her, "See honey, this is what the illegals do." Similarly, when I was working in a grocery store, I overheard our person talking about our Puerto Rican co-worker. I don't know how to pronounce her name. She's probably illegal. Puerto Ricans are citizens. What a maroon. Briefly worked as a cashier at a food place in high school. Woman and her daughter came up to me. The mom only spoke Chinese and had her daughter translate their orders. It was uneventful. The man in line after them walked up and said something to the effect of "Ching Chang Ching, am I right?" and laughed. I was just dumbfounded and stared at him until he just made his food order and left. I'd like to think present day me would say something and put him in his place, but high school me was just confused on why he would even make fun of them. Sometimes the best reaction is none. Nothing is quite as uncomfortable as someone silently staring you down. Or ask them to explain the joke. I'm second generation, so things are a lot better for me than my family. But even today I still see a lot of blatant racism. This all happened within the last 3 months. Refused to call my mom by her name because it's too hard to pronounce and will just call her the Vietnamese one. Joke that they can't board the dog at our place because well eat it. Konnichiwa. Niheo etc. Terror. I go back to China. Dude in pickup truck yelled at my mom when she was crossing the street. Person walked into a Starbucks and yelled loudly, "It's an Asian invasion in here." Yikes, I'd feel so ashamed yelling that walking in a place. Holy fuck. What if there was actually an armed insurrection from a country on the continent of Asia? Woman called and asked for a manager. I said yeah, speaking to him. She said that the black guy who took her order earlier was extremely rude and was intimidating her. I told her that there was only black guy who was working that day and that it didn't sound like him and that he wasn't taking orders at all that day anyways. He was on a different position. She hung up the phone. In the parlance of another site, B25ish, starting career as web dev in the late 90s. Took side gig from a guy whose kid took guitar lessons from me. Build a website for his stupid gold panning machine. Go to his house. Show him website. They be very fundition. And now I'm Jewish. He likes the work. I ask for payment. You people are all the same, aren't you? Most sports commentators. White athletes are praised for their intelligence and work ethic. Minority athletes are praised for their natural athleticism. I never noticed, but this makes a lot of sense. I'm a white guy who went to a primarily black high school and now go to a mostly white college. One day I was eating lunch with 3 of my friends, all black. They all left for CL but and I saw some of my white friends eating lunch and I still had an hour of free time, so I went over and sat with them. The following conversation ensued. F for friend. M for me. F. What are you doing eating with them? Question mark. M. They're my friends, I eat with them all the time. F. But Thea looks around. Black. Exclamation mark. M. Yeah. So. Question mark. Other than that one instance, that friend was pretty cool, but that interaction left a bad taste in my mouth. She dropped out, and we don't talk anymore. What college? Not gonna expose myself, since I'm still there, but it's in South Central PA. Good mix of rural, suburban, and urban around campus depending which way you go. I was just surprised to hear that. It was my freshman year, and after my high school experience I had never really witnessed anything like that. Working my first job as a shipment receiver / part picker for electricians. Got back to my desk to find oil and grease smeared all over and a dirty glove with "fuck you chink" written on it. Also about 10 guys in the trailer laughing when I found it. Apparently the client did it, so I had to suck it up. Honestly, it wasn't the client that got me. He was an asshat anyways. It was my guys laughing that got to me. Blue collar bullshit happens all the time. I was a project coordinator on a mine site and the mechanics would make fun of the other Asian maintenance coordinator all the time with racist crap. They tried that shit with me and I shut that shit down. Just because some people have no self-respect and let you degrade their identity doesn't mean I will. I was in middle school and this group of kids came up to a friend of mine. that was black and straight up called him a monkey. Apparently one of my other friends actually got both himself and the guy that said it suspended because he punched him in the stomach. My mum's British but looks Latina. Everyone talks shit about her in Spanish because she's a traitor to her culture. Culture is 70% British, 20% American, 10% Native American, some tribe that my grandfather is related to, but we aren't a part of. Close bracket. So no clue how they can complain. I remember staying the night at my grandparents' house once. My brothers and I were maybe 7 or 8 years old, and we were rushing up the stairs to go to bed, and my gram says last one up the stairs is a Renner baby, like so casual. I remember looking at my brothers and we all had these horrified looks on our faces. Told my mom about it, and she had to have a conversation with her mom about her language and how we don't allow that. Of course my gram didn't know what was wrong about it. I get why she said it. Back when she was young, using racial slurs was the norm. It was as common as any swear. But now, things have changed, and I guess she didn't change with them. Yeah. She was a child of the Depression and an adult during Civil Rights era. Plus it was in rural Oregon. A few years ago, my wife and I were selling our first house and looking for something a little bigger. One day, I went out to get the mail and started talking with the old lady who lived across the street. She started asking about why we were moving and what we were looking for, and I said we just wanted a lot of space in a small town with a good school district. She said she didn't blame us on the school district because the district we lived in at the time bussed the black kids in, and they still had to nope out of that conversation pretty quickly. I don't know what it is about racist harlots thinking they can just say that shit openly. Like I swear they see me and think, oh he's white. He'll agree. I'm Mexican. I'm 100% white passing. And when I tell people I'm Mexican they are always very surprised. Culturally, I'm very Mexican, as is my entire family, both sides. I get white people making racist comments about Mexicans to me a lot because they automatically assume I'm on their side. Really grinds my gears. I'm also white and Hispanic. I'm either not white enough for the racist white people, or I'm not Hispanic enough for racist Hispanic people. Not something I've experienced, but a response I saw in a similar thread that still haunts me. A woman was on an escalator and suddenly felt hot liquid running down her. She turned around to see a woman holding a cup of coffee that she spilled. Assuming it was an accident, she started telling the woman not to worry. The woman just stared at her skin, where she had spilled the coffee, and commented that her skin color didn't change color and go red at all. She said it was obvious that the woman had intentionally spilled the coffee on her to see how her dark skin would react. I think about this all the time. I don't hold the door for black people. I was working in the West Texas oil fields. One day at the start of my shift, the drill site manager, aka company man, walks in. This is an old white dude who easily makes 6 figures a year. Anyway, one of the hands asks how he's doing. He responds with, well, I feel like a brand new N-word. Harda. At work. Dad ran a large restaurant with a silent business partner. One night, I was with him getting ready to leave the main office and Dad got to talking with the partner and his wife. They were talking about how the kitchen was running the staff. All of a sudden, the partner just decided to blurt out how there's too many Mexicans and blacks working in the kitchen and wished we could do something about that. My dad just awkwardly laughed, brushed it off, and left soon after that. When we got in the car, Dad was like, Jesus Christ, as in holy shit, that was bad. I'm sorry you had to see that. Needless to say, there was a long discussion about it with mom when we got home. White lady here. When I moved into my house, a neighbor, middle-aged white guy, came over and introduced himself. He told me how glad he was that I was moving in and improving the color of the neighborhood. Know what I mean? Apostrophe. He told me that there were too many Mexicans around and that he was glad I wasn't one of them. I would have loved to see his face when he saw my black husband. Luckily, he moved out a couple years ago. I've had some severe and some casual, but the earliest casual I can recall was this. Growing up in the South. Half black, half Puerto Rican. I have a completely Spanish name. Growing up it was non-stop questions about my name and being told I'm not black and not Hispanic. Meanwhile, the only Hispanics around me most of the time were Mexican, that were pretty shitty about it themselves. PR has a really specific dialect of Spanish, so trying to have a conversation there was a lot of PFFD that's not Spanish type responses. That said, every Puerto Ricoer in school was like 5 of us in my HS of like 3k students by senior year, found each other due to that circumstance, and a couple of really nice teachers that were Salvadoria and Panama who had seen the shit happen quite a lot. I learned. In elementary school, my friend, who was Hindu, was yelled at by a teacher in front of the CL but for using a lighter color crayon, the same color the white kids were using, to color her skin in a self-portrait, and then she was given a dark crayon and told to start again. I remember once using a green crayon, because they did not have any in the correct color. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe for more videos.